What's up, you guys? Sean Ross Sapp, managing editor, FightfulMMA.com. It is UFC Stockholm. We got your full coverage. Reminder, Fightful MMA podcast every Tuesday, 2 p.m. Eastern. Myself and Showdown Joe. We got lots of clips that come out of that. We have rankings videos that drop every week as well. Good times over there. Make sure you guys support that. Leave a thumbs up, subscribe. Let's run through this event now. Apologies, I am a little bit under the weather. This will be a little abbreviated. We have an NXT show tonight as well. But apologies if I have to mute the mic to cough or blow my nose or something like that. Still getting over the Vegas flu, cold, whatever the hell it is. But UFC Sweden. Joel Alvarez finishes Danilo Bellardo. Both guys were going for their first win in the company. Bellardo came from Venator, which I'm surprised still exists, but he actually lost to AJ McKee several years ago. Alvarez's ground and pound isn't particularly hard, but there's a lot of it, and the fight gets stopped in the second round. Devin Clark against Darko Stasic. Devin Clark wins, and he hasn't had the best of luck against European fighters. There were two that pulled from the fight. Rakic and Blachowicz beat him. And it's weird to think he's been around for 3 years, but he ends up taking this decision, and it makes him 4-3. And honestly, the UFC's light heavyweight division needs some guys that are 4-3 because it's getting really top heavy with the prospects now, as we'll talk about later on. Bia Malecki taps Duda Santana. This fight should not have happened. It was better than the Priscilla Cachoeira fight that we saw a few weeks ago, but there are a few combined career fights between these two. And featherweights competing at bantamweight. Malecki got the submission in round 2, but if this were at featherweight, maybe it would have meant something, but it didn't mean anything. This should have been an Invicta. I don't know why this fight happened. Frank Camacho finished Nick Hine in the second round. Camacho's such a likable guy, so good for him. It might be it for Hine in today's landscape with the dwindling roster size. Hine's from Europe. That's why he got booked. Pardon there. Leonardo Santos blasted Stevie Ray. Oh, boy. This was good. Ray was in control a bit, and it's looking like the time off wasn't good for Santos. Then Santos just blasts Stevie Ray. The best Stevie Ray back bump you've seen since WCW Harlem Heat days. Then Santos just ran out of the arena. Jesus, this was an all-timer for the knockout. Wow. Just outstanding stuff. It was... I wish this card was in Germany, so I could have said that he gave Stevie Ray the Hamburg Heat, but what more can you say about Leonardo Santos? Well, there's quite a bit you can say, and there's quite a bit you can ask, because I mentioned on the preview that Santos is not active, and he's 39 years old. But you look at him, and it's like, all right, well, what does this win mean? He hadn't fought since 2016. He had a fight last year canceled due to injury. He had one canceled the year before because Olivier Aubin-Mercier got hurt. He got hurt when he was supposed to fight Evan Dunham, and it got even rescheduled at one point. Matt Wyman got hurt and had to pull out of a fight in 2015. Lucas Sajewski got hurt and pulled out of a fight. So much of the layoffs that he's had aren't on him necessarily, here and there. But he's now unbeaten in all 7 of his UFC fights. So Leonardo Santos, this 39-year-old guy who has a win over Kevin Lee when a win over Kevin Lee meant something and a dominant one, tapped out Rocco Martin, tapped out William Massario, if you remember him. Majority draw against Norman Park, so whatever. Closest anybody's come to beating him was that. Maybe the split against Adriano Martins. It's like, well, what does that mean? Well, I think if you're the UFC, you have to put him in there in probably Brazil against a top 10 guy. It's got to be a top 10 guy. Yeah, not Kevin Lee. Kevin Lee's done. He's at welterweight or whatever. I think that him against, a Charles Oliveira or an Ally Quinta or something like that would be good. Charles Oliveira would be a really good one because Charles Oliveira is really emerging. And a Charles Oliveira win there does mean something. Leonardo Santos is really good, and the time off apparently hasn't affected him that much. He is just such an anomaly. It's so weird. I can't quite put my finger on it. Good for him. Number 13, Lena Landsberg beat number 12, Tanya Evinger. This was a great performance out of Landsberg. A couple of Cyborg victims fighting in the top 15 bantamweight division. Sounds about right. Landsberg was an I got 5 on it pick. She got pressed up against the fence and fought it off very well. She connected with elbows and knees that ended up opening Evinger up. Evinger got Lena Landsberg down, but Lena turned the tides. And all things considered, I thought it was an outstanding performance. She wanted a rematch against Aspen Ladd, and that's very encouraging. But the problem is she hasn't put together back-to-back great performances in the UFC. Meanwhile, Aspen Ladd is competing in the top of the division. She's fighting Jermaine Durandamy. So if you're Lena Landsberg and you can't put together back-to-back wins, but you have Aspen Ladd, who's beat Sajara Eubanks, Lena Landsberg, Evinger, then Eubanks again, all back-to-back, has never lost, is like 15-1 across pro and amateur. You gotta work to get that fight again. You can't just call it out. I admire her in doing so, and did she look very good? Yes, she did. She's 37. She doesn't have time to waste. I'd maybe go back after Kunitskaya a little bit quicker than I could Aspen Ladd, though. I don't think she'll get either one of those, though, because Kunitskaya is fresh off that win over Renault. There's no reason to run that back. So instead, I look at Lena Landsberg, and I'm like, well, she's probably going to get a top 10 person just because she's going to move up a little bit. She'll probably maybe get Marion Renault or Aldana. That sounds like it makes sense. Or Zingano at 135 or 145, unless Zingano fights Megan Anderson. Decent fight, good performance. Kandozko defeated Akman. Man, in the early going, it didn't look like Kandozko had 30-plus fights and Akman had 6. It looked the opposite. Akman has some pretty heavy hands, but the composure pays off after Akman is dropped on his ass and gets back up, but he wasn't given the win, and he wasn't happy about it. I'm interested to find out what you all think of Akman getting snubbed here. He wasn't happy about it. I think it was a little bit of a closer fight than he gave it credit, than he credited. Sorry, I'm a little bit out of sorts. But this was 29-28, so it wasn't like he got blown out. I saw all the media giving it opposite of Akman and very few fans, so I didn't see it. I didn't see it for Akman. It's okay to lose a fight when you're that early in your career against a guy that's a veteran. Daniel Tamer defeated Sung Bin Yo, unanimous decision. Tamer was very lucky to even get this fight and probably got it because of his geographical location. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's okay. He's 5 inches shorter than Joe, but he was 0-3 in the UFC ahead of this and cracked Yo early, but Yo gave it back to him. He got a little bit tired of chasing at one point, earned the win, and it was very emotional after 2 years and 3 losses in the UFC. But Tamer went on a full-on thanking everybody, and I mean, he's had a lot of time to think about that too. He didn't get that win in the UFC before this, so he's been waiting for this moment for quite a while. So I was quite okay with that. Also, up next, Christos Giagos defeated Damir Hadzovic. Another fight booked on this show based on geography, and the 4th consecutive decision on this card after that great Santos finish. Hadzovic at least had some semblance of consistency going into this card, but I think that this show pretty badly needed the Latifi Ozdemir fight that got canceled to help out depth. especially at 205. You could really, really point to this show as clarity for 205 and really helping things become crystal clear. But Latifi pulled out. Giagos had a great head kick to double leg that I liked. He pressed forward and was really aggressive with takedowns. But Giagos halted that momentum and consistency that Hadzovic had. He won, and it gives him his first winning streak in the UFC. He's now won 2 in a row. Joseph Boza said they needed a fight to be moved up to the main card. You could say that, but I mean, maybe Landsberg, Evinger, because it was a top 15 fight, maybe, but Makwan Amir Khani tapped out Chris Fishgold. Amir Khani got a fantastic ovation from the crowd. I had picked Amir Khani to win this fight, even though he was a slight underdog. This guy is just so full of charisma, and it does not feel like, 4 years ago, he had that knockout win over Andy Ogle. And I thought that he was just going to light this sport on fire. And he's 5-1 in the UFC. He's doing great. He had that split decision loss to Arnold Allen. So, can you really hold that against him? Not really. Arnold Allen was somebody to behold there. I think that he lost that fight pretty handedly. But he did good, and he needed this finish because he hadn't had a finish in 4 years. It's been nonstop decisions. He hadn't won any performance bonuses. But that Anaconda choke, I want to see somebody utilize that in pro wrestling. It was him, Amir Khani, pronouns, and Fishgold both walking around one another with the Anaconda choke applied. It was a beauty. It was a work of art. Really loved this finish. This one was great. If I'm the UFC, you give Amir Khani a top 15 opponent, and you give him a top 15 opponent somewhere in Europe. Obviously, he's never fought in the States, but you got to give him a top 15 opponent in Europe. Korean Zombie would be a fun one. Yair Rodriguez would be a fun one. To me, you got to give him a co-main event level fight over in Europe. You have to after that ovation. And Korean Zombie and Yair Rodriguez are that right now. That is a way that you can go. Depending on how Ricardo Lamas does, maybe him, but I think that you want to know it's going to be a barn burner. If you want to capitalize off of an Amir Khani, then you do it against guys like Rodriguez and Chan Sung Young, who you know are going to throw down and put on a great performance and won't necessarily or restrict him in that level of excitement. Up next, woo boy, these two light heavyweight performances. Alexander Rakic ended Jimmy Manawa's top 15 hopes effectively forever. Guys, I have been speaking about this light heavyweight division for a long time. And I've had a lot of people say, oh, it's not there. It's not there. These guys aren't ready. Cut the shit, man. These guys are ready. You've got Rakic, Spawn, Crute, Reyes, Walker, Santos, all as new blood. All as new blood that have emerged as prospects in the first 5. Maybe not Santos as a prospect, but you've had Santos and Smith both step up and really become top flight guys over the past year. Then you've had Rakic, Spann, Crute, Reyes, Walker as prospects. You got Ozdemir and Glover's former title challengers, Anderson, Blachowicz, Latifi in there as well. This is a good, fun division now. Jimmy Manawa is not going to be a part of that division in that level anymore. Jimmy Manawa has now not won a fight since March 2017. He's been knocked out 3 times. He's lost 4 in a row. You could at least say every single fight that Jimmy Manawa has had has been an exciting one, except for maybe one. I guess you could argue the Blachowicz fight wasn't, but I'm talking like 10, 11 fights, and they've all been good. They're exciting. They just ended in being unconscious. Alexander Rakic stepped in, set up a head kick, and just flattened Jimmy Manawa. Knocked his ass out dead. Amazing head kick. And Alexander Rakic is a name that you look at and you're like, all right, he's ready. He's ready to compete with top 10 guys. He is. He's there. There's no more time to wait. That was an amazing performance. Like, how do you look at that and not think that he belongs in the top 15, top probably 11 or 12? I would probably have him go up against Glover Teixeira next. Really see if he can compete there. Now, Glover Teixeira, Latifi, Anderson, Ozdemir, they're a bit of the old guard that are kind of there. Cormier, he's going to be out of those rankings soon. He ain't going back to light heavyweight. Gustafson's about to be pulled from those rankings. So I look at Rakic and I'm probably like, man, he's a fringe top 10 guy. He should probably be ranked at about number 11, 10, 11. Manawa, I agree with Joseph Boza in the chat. See if you can do it at heavyweight. If you can, give it a go. If not, hang him up, man. Well, hanging him up is what Alexander Gustafson did. He has retired. He took his gloves off in the cage after Anthony Smith tapped him out. Gustafson retires after losing 3 UFC title fights. And the story of this wasn't necessarily Gustafson, because he's not been that Alexander Gustafson. He's just not been. He's not won since early 2017. He couldn't ever stay in the cage. The last time the man ever won 2 fights in a calendar year was 2012. He's won 3 fights since 2013 started. I wasn't buying him at the top levels anymore. Did I think it was impressive that he beat Teixeira and that he beat Blachowicz? Teixeira a lot more than Blachowicz. I thought that he had Manawa, that was a nice one. But I don't think he's truly been the same after the John Jones fight. And hey, we saw that with Johnny Hendricks too. Met some success after the GSP fight, was never quite the same guy. Anthony Smith, however, boy, this is a story. I like to imagine Anthony Smith as the guy. Like, have you all ever seen SNL with the character who plays the girlfriend of the boxer? Anthony Smith's career trajectory is that of every boxing movie, where it looks like they're done, man. He's 5-6. He is an absolute scrub. He's in Strikeforce. He loses his way out of the company. He loses his way out of the UFC. He even loses his way out of Victory FC. And then something happens. And Anthony Smith goes on this unbelievable 5-year run where he beats Rashad Evans, Shogun Hua, Hector Lombard, Volkan Ozdemir, and Alexander Gustafson. Wow. Anthony Smith belongs here. Anthony Smith belongs at the top levels of the UFC light heavyweight, and it is amazing what he has achieved. You cannot discount what Anthony Smith has done, and it is goddamn special. He switched his hips, forced Gustafson down. I love that he cut off Gustafson, who would turn and run. Like, at some point in your career, some people figure that out, and it just took a while for people to figure out, hey, maybe don't let Gustafson get his rhythm. Anthony Smith just I think the world of that guy after this. Think the world of him. What a performance. What a year he's had. Keep in mind, 1 year ago, he had not debuted as a UFC light heavyweight. And in a year, he has defeated 4 men that have been UFC champions or competed for UFC titles. The only person to beat him is arguably the greatest fighter of all time. My God. I love what Anthony Smith has done. He is making a real case for the weight cutting, kind of stepping away. Good for him. An amazing performance. And you got to look at Who do you put him up against now? Well, you can't put him up against Jones. Jones just smoked him. Maybe Thiago Santos in a rematch if Santos loses. But maybe Dom Reyes. That one makes a whole lot of sense to me. Let's talk about Alexander Gustafsson. You think he's gone? He says he is. I think he'll fight again. He's 32. I think if he doesn't fight in the UFC, he'll fight somewhere. I don't know what his contract status is, but he did take his gloves off in the cage. He said, quote, "The show is over." And he is lost. He's 2-4 in his last 6. Since facing John Jones the first time, he's 3-5 after starting 15-1. You can't blame a guy for getting rattled around quite like he has and having the injury troubles that he has. He's never fought more than once since 2015. He's only fought twice in a year, one time since 2013. He can't stay in the cage. He can't stay healthy. I wouldn't blame him. How much money is he making? Not hard to say. I mean, I know that for the Jones fight, he made a flat $500,000. So if he's making that for this, okay, he stepped in his last year, cleaned up, got $1 million. Sure, he can teach people. That's UFC Sweden. That's Alexander Gustafsson. That's a wrap on his career. Guys, thank you all so much. I will put up some individual fight reviews. Leave a thumbs up on this video. Make sure you guys subscribe. We are here every Tuesday, 2 p.m. Eastern, for the Fightful MMA podcast with myself and the great Showdown Joe. Thank you guys so much. Join us for NXT TakeOver tonight. Join us for the Anthony Joshua fight. We are out.